She'll take care of you. If I can get everybody to go ahead and grab a seat, we'll get started. And just real quickly, I'm Eric. I'm with the office of Congressman Burgess. But I'd like to welcome everybody for making it here tonight and making it the construction and everything else. Denton High School called us earlier this week and said the city had not notified them that they were going to be tearing up the street and wanted to know what we were going to do. And we said, we're committed and we're moving forward. So thank you for your patience in getting over here tonight. Your tax dollars hard at work. So I'm starting just a little bit early intentionally to allow as much time as possible for the Q&A this evening. I've agreed that we would be out of here at 8 o'clock, so we will be running until 8 o'clock. One of the challenges that we run into in this particular facility, we anticipated that we might have a full house. And normally when we do the Q&A, we have everybody line up along the wall. For those of you that are looking at the walls, you notice that they go all the way up to the seats, and Denton High School was not willing to take a row of seats out for us. So we've had to get a little bit creative. So what I'm going to ask for is a little bit of participation tonight, and if I can get everybody who is interested in asking a question to stand up, we will start through the process of identifying how many we can get. Based on my experience, we'll be able to get about 10 questions. If people keep their questions short and kind of keep others in mind, we can get through more. But what I'm going to also ask everybody to do is to raise either their right or their left hand, and we're going to start through a process to identify who is going to participate. Everybody got their hand up that's standing up, and they've chosen their right or their left hand? And can I ask, you're participating, so I won't, can I ask you to pick either right or left and announce it?
Left.
Left, okay. And sir, can I ask you a favor? Can you double check and see if that has two heads or two tails? Would you flip it? And if it comes up heads, all of the right hands are going to sit down. If it comes up tails, all the left will sit down. Let it fall. And can you see what that is? It's tails. So everybody that has their left hand, sit down, please. Everybody that has their right hand, you're still in. How many do we have? I think we've got it narrowed down. All of those of you who have your right hand up, if you would meet over here on the right, Melanie is going to work with you to get you lined up. We have space for 22 seats, and so we're going to allow those individuals to do one quick drawing to get down to 22.
Let the kids go. Yeah. Let the kids go.
I need to do a quick count. And this is the honor system, so if you had your left hand up and you're coming down, don't be surprised if you get ratted out at some point. So how many do we have? And if I can get everybody to move up here. Nah, I think we've got a few extras that have appeared. So we're going to have to do this one more time. Right or left hand? Everybody move down here. We'll get this group in together. Everybody up here at the front. Come on down. If I can get you to come on in. Okay, and once again, I need a commitment right or left hand from everybody. And as soon as you've settled, everybody's made their pick, and let's get them up high. Okay? And once again, let's pick somebody right or left.
Left, because I have my left up.
Left, okay? And I will let you flip the coin. Heads, if it comes up heads, all the right people will stay here. All the ones that do left will go and sit down, if it's tails. Ready? And it's heads. So all of the right-handed people stay up here. All the left people go and sit down. Thank you. And thank you for your honesty.
I have a quick I've been to 4 town halls.
Okay. How many do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 13, 14, 15, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, let's go. Go ahead and do the drawing. You're going to draw a number, and we will send you to your seats. We've got a row reserved back there in the center that's been reserved specifically for this. So with that, while they're doing the drawing, if I can go ahead and start. And for those of you that do have questions that didn't want to get behind the microphone, we do have forms that you can fill out as you're leaving. Those of you that had the wrong right hand or left hand up this evening, you're welcome also to fill one of those out, and Congressman Burgess will be glad to take a look at those and get back to you on that as well. So with that, Ms. Price, if I can get you to come on up here, we'll get started. And thank you for your patience as we work through this.
Thank you, Eric. Hello, everyone. My name is Mia Price, and as president of the Denton ISD Board of Trustees, I want to proudly and warmly welcome you to our Denton High School campus. We understand and appreciate the importance of community engagement and involvement. We have experienced your support, not only in the voting process, most recently passing our latest bond package, but also through the generous volunteers who serve on committees and tutor our students. You, our community, give on so many levels and in so many ways that I am taking this public opportunity and every opportunity I can to publicly thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being part of the process and for being involved. As a community, we need you. And now, I have someone with some very wise words. I'd like to introduce Pastor Pat Smith, the Director of Local Outreach for Denton Bible Church.
Good evening. Please join me in a moment of silence to pray according to your faith tradition, and then I'll close this. Heavenly Father, we lift up this evening's opportunity that we have as a nation to meet with our leaders in Congress, to have a dialogue, to talk about the issues that weigh on us each and every day. We pray for Congressman Burgess and his staff. Thank you for their efforts on a daily basis to work our personal matters that we often know nothing about, but the diligence that they put forward in that effort we greatly appreciate. We appreciate Dr. Burgess's leadership, his efforts, his tenure, his efforts to work the complex issues that affect Americans each and every day. Father, I pray that we would have a civil and candid conversation tonight, that we could talk about the things that affect us in a way that furthers understanding, that strengthens understanding, both in Congressman Burgess and his staff, and in the citizens of this district. Father, we at the same time lift up those men and women overseas who continue to protect our freedoms, not only in the armed forces, but also in the State Department and the myriad of other agencies that work overseas to advance freedom and democracy, free commerce, and we also pray for those men and women at home, our local police department, fire department, as well as other first responders that protect us on a daily basis in an increasingly hostile world. But Lord, we lift up our nation's leaders for wisdom and discernment, that you would work in their hearts and their minds to do what is right, to pursue truth, to treat people fairly, and to continue to support the things that make America great. We thank you again for this opportunity and for Congressman Burgess's willingness to have an open dialogue with the citizens of this district. It's in your son's name we pray. Amen. Thank you.
And with that, call forward the Denton High School Air Force JROTC to post the colors. Oh, that's okay. Yeah.
We're really proud of our students. So once again, I'd like to introduce them by name. They gave up their time this summer to be here for us. We have U.S. Flag Bearer, Cadet Lieutenant Colonel John Chambers, Texas Flag Bearer, Cadet First Lieutenant Charlotte Warwick, U.S. Rifle Guard, Cadet Second Lieutenant Max Safranek, Texas Rifle Guard, Cadet Captain Matthew Hausman. If you could please come forward for the presentation of colors. If everyone could please stand. Please join me in the pledge to the United States flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, cadets. And now, the moment you've been waiting for. I've known, and I can't get out of the habit of calling him Dr. Burgess because that's how I first met him. I was working in a reference lab, and Dr. Burgess was a practicing OB-GYN, and I would get called out on weekends to perform LS ratios, which would determine the lung capacity of babies. And he would use that test to help him decide whether or not to deliver these babies. Little did I know back then that Dr. Burgess, in 2002, would be elected to Congress and become Congressman Michael C. Burgess, MD. He was re-elected most recently in November of 2016, and he currently represents the majority of Denton County and parts of Tarrant County. As of the 115th Congress, Dr. Burgess is the most senior doctor on both sides of the aisle serving in the U.S. House of Representatives. He serves on the prestigious House Energy and Commerce Committee, where he is the chair of the Subcommittee on Health. He also serves as a member of the Subcommittee on Oversight and Investigations and the Subcommittee on Digital Commerce and Consumer Protection. In addition, he is a member of the House Rules Committee and the Helsinki Commission. He is Congressman Michael Burgess, but he will always be Dr. Michael Burgess in my heart. Please welcome Congressman Michael Burgess.
Thank you, Mia. Thank you so much for doing this. Thanks. And let me see if this works. And I'm going to remarks that I have very, very short, and then we'll get to your questions. But just a few quick housekeeping details. I don't know if you recall last year we did this exercise in March. I did not do it in March this year because there was a primary going on. And then right after the primary, there were other municipal elections, school board elections going on, and then runoffs, and it seems like we've had election after election. But now we're done with elections for a few months, and it seemed reasonable to hold this meeting tonight. Now, obviously, when I selected tonight, I didn't know the things that were going to be before us this week, but it's propitious that we have this discussion because I'll be going back to Washington on a very early flight tomorrow morning and making some decisions. And it is going to be a week that is likely going to be quite historic in do we, in fact, finally get something done on border security? Does immigration law make sense after the Congress gets through with this next week? So I do not have legislative text to refer you to, but I will tell you it will be coming very soon, and we'll put it up on our website. It will obviously be up on the website of the House Rules Committee, so you can follow along in real time what that's going to look like. And as you always do, I would expect to hear from you what you like and what you don't like on that. There are a number of other things that are going to come up this summer, things that relate to how much spending goes on in this country, and I suspect to hear from a good deal from you, perhaps not tonight, but at other points I suspect we'll have a fair amount of discussion on that. So Eric's given you the ground rules on the microphone and the questions, and at this point I would just simply say I'm going to turn it over to you and your questions, and then at the conclusion I'll have a few concluding remarks. But thank you for coming out tonight. Democracy is a participatory sport, and the floor is yours.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Roseanne Foradori. I am here tonight to ask a question, basically to present an idea with regards to what's going on at our borders. I'm very upset about everything, but I came up with an idea yesterday. I don't actually think it's my idea because it just came to me. And then I spoke with many of my friends that love Donald Trump, many of my friends that are Republican, many that are Democrat. I mean, I talked to as many people as I could about this idea to see what people thought. And then I said, I gotta talk to somebody. Then I looked at the website and it was like, oh my gosh, you're here tonight. And then I came in and I said, well, maybe if it's meant to be, well, I picked number 1 to ask this or propose it. So maybe there's a reason for this. My idea is that instead of building a wall that divides, that we build a wall that unites. And when I say wall, what I mean is a place where we can provide shelter and treat human beings humanely. Not to give people a free pass to become Americans, because I love our country and I love what our founding fathers stood for. What I'm saying is, there's a way that we can build a wall of compassion instead of a wall of division. And the way that would look is families would stay intact. The wall would be excuse me, I'm a computer programmer and I'm used to being in a very small closet, so I'm not used to that kind of response. So the wall wouldn't be something that divides, it would be something that unites. And imagine from left to right, a row of homes, and say the row of homes only have a back door, they don't have a front door. Just like when you go to Disney World or something, you get a ticket to ride the ride, but you don't stand there for 12 hours, you do something else. My suggestion is a row of homes that the families live in, shelter and food is provided, but while they await immigration to process their application or whatever, that they participate in the building of these homes. So when you say who's going to build the Donald J. Trump wall of compassion. The people that want to become Americans build the Donald J. Trump wall of compassion. Because if I know anything about first generation immigrants, is they know how to work. And families know how to stick together. So this idea, while people are waiting to become, you know, whatever, I don't know exactly how the immigration process works, but I know in Canada that churches adopt families. So maybe all of the churches, I belong to the South Lake White's Chapel, I'm a member of the choir, and I know that we're very compassionate toward people and refugees, and maybe there's a way that all the church missions can get involved in helping these people acclimate and work their way into the system, but in a humane way. That's my idea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait. Do you have that written down? Why don't you leave it with Eric? And do you have contact information back there so we can get with you? Okay, fair enough. We'll have a look at it.
Hi, I called and spoke to your DC office today. My name's Gretchen Veiling. I live in Keller, Texas. I thought today I was actually going to be coming to ask about Moms Demand Action, but I had to unfortunately put that on the back burner because of what's happening on our southern border. I think there's probably a lot of people in here who watched the march down at the southern border yesterday. Did you have a chance to see that?
No.
Okay, and do you know what happened? Did you see that Beto O'Rourke and Joe Kennedy III, they went down there, and there was, I had a friend of mine from Keller at 11 o'clock at night that got in the car and drove to El Paso because there has been a change from within this administration that is taking babies and girls and boys away from their parents. And I think there's a lot of people in here who are heartbroken. I think we all, you know, I said it today, you know, when people tell you who they are, believe them. Believe them. So I don't think that there's anything that's happening right now that many of us are very surprised about. However, I think that our true hope was that when, I don't even like to say his name, we'll call it the president, when he was put in place, our goal was that the representatives within Congress would keep him to task and would make sure he was doing ethical things. And so my question really is, so I have been reading and watching. I have been following, like I said, I was up yesterday morning. I mean, I haven't been sleeping because of what's going on. And the administration is saying, some people are saying, this is our policy. This is it. This is it. This is our policy. We have Secretary from Homeland Security who said, we're not doing this. We have kids with numbers on their shirts. What do we as citizens and what are you as our representative going to do to make sure that these babies and girls and boys are put into a system and they're lost? And we don't know where the girls are. Where are the girls and where are the babies? All we get to see is the boys. We're scared. We are scared. We're scared. I mean, they are not U.S. citizens, but they are human beings, and we're scared for them. And so the only voice that we have in Washington is you and our two senators. What are you going to do for these babies? And what are you going to do for your citizens who are afraid for these babies?
Well, I appreciate your involvement. I promise you I have been involved in this for a number of years, going back to 2005 when we voted on the Sensenbrenner bill in the House of Representatives. 4 years ago, I took multiple trips down to the lower Rio Grande Valley sector and visited with the children who were being held in facilities. You know, one of the things that has troubled me a lot in the last 4 years, and I appreciate that you're critical of the leadership in this country, but where the hell is the leadership in Honduras, Guatemala, and El Salvador? Where are those presidents?
You know what?
Your tax dollars go down there to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars every year. What are they doing? What are they doing for their citizens? Because it's interesting, when the First Lady of Honduras was to Lackland Air Force Base in 2014, I was down there at the same time. She was asked, "Do you want your children back?" And she said, "I do want our children back." So President Obama put them on a plane and sent them back to Honduras, and it turned out to not be a good situation that they were returned to, and many of those children found themselves in a difficult situation. But why is it still now 4 years later, and the leaders of those countries who are supposed to be taking care of their citizens,
I understand that, but we are a nation of immigrants, and we cannot turn our back on these babies. And here's the thing, and why we're so enraged, why we're so mad, is because we went from a policy where these families got to stay together. And I mean, we've heard, not all of them, not all of them, not all of them.
They were not staying together.
Not all of them.
They were not staying together. And I went down there multiple times, and those children, they were separated at the Honduran border. They were separated on La Bestia.
Not our border. That's not our border, though. That's not our border, though. And what are we going to?
If people come to the border and present themselves for asylum, they are not separated.
That's what they're doing.
No, they're not separated.
That's what they're doing. Or they're closing off the venue, and so they're not having a chance. They're not having a way to effectively get into the country. So here's my question. There have been, immigration is an issue across the board that we've been fighting about for years. And I think the belief, be it wrong or right, is that there are some people who basically don't want any immigrants anymore, and there are some that understand and believe that that's what we're founded on. What are you, inside of your governing body, what are you currently doing when you see what's going on today? What are you working on for us as our representative to basically make sure these kids are okay? So have you been down there since the new policy took effect? What's been 6 weeks, I think?
My last trip down there was Memorial Day weekend last year.
Okay.
And there were no children there on Memorial Day last year because it had all stopped when Donald Trump was inaugurated.
Okay, so
anyone who understood the situation recognized that if something wasn't done, it was going to get bad again. And every member of Customs and Border Patrol that I talked with, that was their assertion, that it was vastly improved since the inauguration of Donald Trump, but it was likely to get worse if
why is it getting worse?
The Congress did not do something.
So just the fact that he was elected, it fixed everything?
The good news is that there is very likely something that's going to happen this week. I'm not going to say it's something that I would
something within
necessarily
Congress?
like or support.
Okay.
I do believe it will start with a robust security bill, but it will also include measures for attending to people who are in this country without the benefit of citizenship.
Okay, and we need to take care of those children. I mean, right? Do you agree that we need to take care of those children?
We are taking care of those children. Your tax dollars are taking care of those children right now. Right now.
So you, I mean, I think we need you to go down there. And you know what? We need free press, and we need you guys to be out. We need you guys to be able. I mean, we've had representatives and senators go down there, and they're not able to go in and assess the situation.
No, you can't go into a facility housing children.
We don't. I shouldn't be able to go in there.
You can't just show up at the door and say, "I'm a United States senator. I want to come in on a Friday afternoon."
That's like saying I can't go into a date.
It is, well, no one's hiding
That's
anything.
the fear.
It's protecting the children who are there. You can't just let people in off the street.
They're not just off the street. They're not.
Well, Senator Merkley was unannounced. He showed up at the door and said, "I'm a United States senator."
Do you understand the element of surprise? Why he showed up unannounced?
No, he knows the correct way to do it.
That's the reason he did it. So
No,
I don't think we're going to move any farther.
I disagree.
Thank you.
What are you going to do?
My name is Amber. I'm the mom of Max, who is 10, and Lulu, who is 6. Now, they are here at their very first town hall. And they're very grateful that they can ask you a couple of questions, sir. I'm going to please ask the audience, they're feeling really nervous, and they come from a very loving home, so they're not used to a whole lot of yelling. So during their questions, if you could please keep the yelling at Dr. Burgess to a minimum so my kids don't think that you're yelling at them. I'm serious. Okay. So, Lulu, did you want to ask your question first? Okay. Here you go. You want to hold your sign? I'll give you the microphone, baby. Make sure you introduce yourself. Okay. So look at Dr. Burgess. He's the one you're talking to.
Hello, my name is Lulu. I am 6-year-old.
Hi, Lulu.
And I'm here to say, why does Donald Trump think it's okay to leave kids from their moms? And what should we do about that?
Good question, honey.
Could you repeat that for me?
So Lulu asked why Donald Trump thinks it's okay to take kids away from their moms, and what do you plan to do about it? And I know you touched on it in the last question. There was a lot of yelling, so if you could please tell Lulu what you're planning on it, that'd be helpful.
Well, the president, I think, has made it very clear. He doesn't like the current situation, and he wants the law to change.
So what can you tell Lulu about what you are going to do to make sure that kids won't be taken from their parents?
Well, there's going to be 2 bills that are going to be considered in the House of Representatives. They'll come up to the Rules Committee where I sit. The president's going to meet with members of Congress tomorrow afternoon at 5:30. And I think this is a very good chance that something, in fact, may be done. I will refresh your memory back in December of 2010, right at the end of that congressional session. You'll recall that that was the end of President Obama's first 2 years in office. He had an overwhelming majority in the House of Representatives, a 59 vote in Democratic senators in the Senate. And at the very last of that congressional session, they decided that they were going to finally move the bill dealing with Dreamers. I didn't agree with it, but they said that's what they were going to do. It passed the House. Clearly that was not a challenge for them because they had a significant majority. It did not pass in the Senate. Now, Democrats had 59 votes in the Senate. They got 3 Republicans to vote with them. 5 Democrats voted against them. So it has been historically a very difficult thing for either party to get to consensus. In an odd way, Donald Trump may have moved the needle more on this than any president that I've served with.
So are you?
There are things that are likely to happen this week.
That's
there
great.
May not
So
be
are you
things that
telling?
I agree with. Some of them I will agree with very strongly, but.
And are you telling Lulu, who is here at her very first town hall, counting on you as a leader, that you're going to do everything that you can in your power as her representative to make sure that children like her are not taken away from their parents when they seek asylum in this country?
If their parents follow the law, they will not be taken away.
Okay. Lulu, did you have any follow-up questions? Oh, Lulu has another question. You go. Oh, no. You save it for later. Lulu, what was your follow-up question?
There are some little babies out there that got left from their families, and they're crying right now to see because they want their mommy.
They are. That's very sad. I hope that Dr. Burgess can do something about that, sweetheart. Very good. Anything else? Okay. Max, did you have a question that you wanted to ask? Go ahead.
My name is Max, and I am 10 years old. And I don't understand why transgender people get treated differently than other people. And what can we do to? What will you do to help them get treated like other people?
Good question.
Under the 14th Amendment, equal protection under the law. We're all treated equally.
Okay.
But they're not treated equally.
So Max, so Dr. Burgess said that he's right, that all people under the Constitution should be given equal rights. Do you feel that transgender people are given equal rights in this country based on your experience?
No.
Okay. So I agree. So do you think that there's maybe something more that Congress could do, something like maybe the Equality Act or the Civil Rights Act of 1964 guaranteed equal rights to people when they were denied those rights? So is there something that you can think of is there something that you can think of that Dr. Burgess could do? Maybe like support the Equality Act or something? Yeah? Yeah. So anything else?
No.
To take over his time?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, Dr. Burgess. As the son of a wealthy physician, Mr. Congressman, you were very fortunate, and you attended private school. Welcome to a public high school. This place was good enough for my kids.
Mine too.
Net neutrality is important, but I'm going to leave that to somebody else. Americans have buried over 400 victims in over 200 school shootings since Sandy Hook. Yet your hands take generous campaign donations from the National Rifle Association and other corporations. Swear your oath as a medical doctor to do no harm with the pain of the grieving families after their children are murdered by America's next school shooting.
Tip the microphone. Nobody can understand you, sir. Tip the microphone up a little bit.
Can anybody hear me now? All right. Americans have buried 400 victims in over 200 school shootings since Sandy Hook. Yet your hands take generous campaign donations from the National Rifle Association, the premier murder weapon lobby in the United States, and other corporations too. Swear your oath as a medical doctor to do no harm with the pain of grieving families after their children are murdered at America's next school shooting, while your palm is being generously graced with thousands of dollars from America's premier murder weapon lobby, the NRA. Swear your oath to do no harm. And I mean it.
I disagree. Let's go on.
You disagree?
I disagree with your contention.
So swear your oath to do no harm with your taking money from murder weapon lobbies.
Look, I run a congressional campaign.
You would rather run away? Okay. Coward Burgess.
Congressman Burgess, good evening. My name is Alan Taylor.
Come a little closer to that mic if you would, just so we can hear you.
It sounds really loud from my perspective. Good evening, my name is Dr. Alan Taylor. And first off, I want to thank you for all the good work that you do for fellow Texans.
Thank you.
As a career clinical laboratory professional, though, I have to tell you that I'm very concerned about the cuts that PAMA are proposing.
The cuts?
The cuts that PAMA are proposing to clinical laboratories, where some experts say it may be as much as 30%. These rates are really based on flawed market analysis and do not reflect the true clinical laboratory settings in many, many cases. Also, they do not follow the congressional intention and excluded many clinical laboratories. So the rates, as you know, are not sustainable and will result in most likely lost jobs and also reduced Medicare benefits to some of our citizens, especially those in rural areas. So will you commit to support the enactment of legislation to fix the PAMA rate cuts for this country?
I've been working on trying to fix that problem ever since it was created. I did not agree with it the day it was passed. You'll recall it was passed on a voice vote in Congress with really very little debate, and it was done as an offset to pay for what used to be called the doc fix, so that the cuts under the sustainable growth rate formula would not go into effect. Fortunately, the next year I was able to end the sustainable growth formula. I was able to end that. And so we don't continue to have this governing by offset. But you're right, the governing by offset component of PAMA, and I forget even now what the acronym stood for, but it was the doc fix of 2014. And again, passed with very little debate, very little actual knowledge of what was going on. It was simply there as a we'll pay for this fix with this offset. It wasn't the only offset. There were others included in that as well. But I don't disagree with you. I do think it needs to be fixed, and the clinical labs, goodness knows from a practicing physician standpoint, we couldn't live without them.
Absolutely. So I appreciate your comments, and so I take that to mean that you will continue to support.
I have been working on this really since it was passed, and we all knew the day was coming when the rules would be written and the application would be required. So this is one of the things that I'm continuously going back and forth with our friends at Department of Health and Human Services to see if we can fix it administratively, and if we can't, it likely would not be standalone legislation. It would likely be included in some other vehicle that passes, but I am well aware of it.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Burgess, appreciate it.
Thank you. Dr. Burgess, I'm Sally Ortega Haynes. I live in Highland Village. I've been there for 30 years. I'm a human resource professional, experienced in the insurance industry. Right now, we have 52 million Americans that have pre-existing medical conditions. And right now, the Justice Department is refusing to defend a lot of the laws that protect the ACA with regards to pre-existing conditions. And my question for you is, do you agree with what the Trump administration is doing and trying to allow the insurance companies to deny insurance to people with pre-existing conditions, and what do you plan to do about it?
Well, no insurance company no insurance company is doing that right now, and I cannot tell you the number of times I thought that the courts were going to eliminate the problem that I had with the Affordable Care Act, and they haven't yet. So that's a big stretch that something is going to happen. But if it does, and I will tell you this, I think certainly on the House side, Committee on Energy and Commerce and Committee on Ways and Means that have jurisdiction in this area both have demonstrated that they are willing to step up and find solutions. I mean, the fundamental question is not, can we force somebody to sell something against their will that they can't afford to provide, but can we make options and choices available to people? Risk pools in Texas were actually not a bad thing, and you know this if you worked in the industry for a while. The reinsurance programs that they've done in the state of Maine have worked extremely well. And in the large group market, the prohibitions on exclusion of pre-existing conditions have actually worked well in that market. So there are a number of things. There are a number of things from a policy perspective that could be considered. But forgive me if I do not get enthusiastic about the courts finally taking a stand on the Affordable Care Act, because they've refused to every time they've had an opportunity. This will not even be heard till January 1st of next year. So it's
Yeah, but there are millions of people that are going to lose their health insurance.
No, they're not.
And they're going to go bankrupt. Yes, they will be able to move from one job to another. They will have pre-existing conditions. And what's going to happen to currently the pregnancy was considered a pre-existing condition. It was protected for a while. If we stop protecting any pre-existing conditions, a woman that's pregnant is going to be stuck.
If the courts rule, the Congress can always come back with policy. I mean, that is the way things
What are you going to do to
Well,
protect those millions of
I
Americans?
think the track record that we showed out of committee this past year is one of being willing to step in and do that.
Okay. All that you're saying just sounds like you're here to protect the insurers and not the American citizens. You're not convincing me of that. You haven't said anything to help us.
Look, the insurance companies are the ones that love the Affordable Care Act. They're the ones that have driven the price through the roof so that no one can afford it. Any policy any longer.
That's not true. That's not true.
But just as a practical matter, I mean, this is not even going to be heard till next year, so I think we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves.
Thank you for your time.
Dr. Burgess, my name is Reverend Dr. Jeff Hood. I am a theologian and an activist here in North Texas.
I'm familiar with your church.
We've talked before.
Yes.
You know, I can tell you right now, for me, I'm very angry at you. I find the things that you talk about and the things that I see on television to be absolutely disgusting and despicable. But Dr. Burgess, the reason I am here tonight is because I am a follower of Jesus Christ. I believe with all of my heart that Mary, Joseph, and Jesus sought asylum in Egypt. And I feel at this moment, and it's breaking my heart, and I feel like you're going to come back at me with some explanation, but it bothers me to no end to think that Mary, Joseph, and Jesus would be ripped apart at our border.
Reverend, not for seeking asylum.
Hold on. When we talk about loving our neighbors as we love ourselves, loving the marginalized, loving the oppressed, loving the stranger, Dr. Burgess, I want you to have an opportunity, because there are so many times where I disagree with you, again, with all of my heart. But I want you to have the opportunity to be a witness to your faith, the faith that you talk about, to this crowd, these cameras. Dr. Burgess, at what point are you going to stop claiming Jesus and start acting, voting, and doing Jesus?
You know, this problem did not just start this week or this month. It has been going on for several years. I don't recall hearing this passion from you at a town hall in 2011 when the same problem was going on our southern border. Look.
Dr. Burgess, you can't. I asked you a question. This is not a town hall where I answer questions. I asked you a question. And sir, I think it is, again, disgusting and despicable to tell me that in 2011 I didn't care about immigration. I've been caring about the gospel of Jesus Christ the entire time. I'm asking you if you care about the gospel of Jesus Christ.
Well, the answer to your question is yes.
Good.
We'll move on.
All right. I look forward to seeing it. I look forward to seeing it. And let me say it one more time. Step to the microphone.
Eyes.
I look forward to seeing it.
All right, before I get started, two people before me asked a question, and I think it must be known that the top two contributing sectors to Michael Burgess are health professionals and pharmaceuticals. And now to my question. I just got back from Boys State this weekend, a program which emphasized involvement in our government and country. That, among many things, is why I feel it is so important to speak here today with you. On April 20th, hundreds of thousands of students walked out of schools all across Texas and the nation in protest of gun violence, and the walkout that myself and many other students planned included a mass reach out to your office, to which we did not get a response, and voter registration at our lunches. What specifically have you done in order to ensure our safety in schools, workplaces, and our communities? Are you working for us or for your donors?
Look, school safety has been a high priority, and there are any number of things that I have done and will continue to do to ensure that our schools.
All right, and can we also talk about how widespread gun violence is? So, like, can you talk about what more you're going to do besides just schools? Because school shootings happen in churches, places of work, public places, concerts, music festivals.
Well, as you know, there have been a number of instances where the background check system has failed the citizens of this country and failed it badly. It did in Florida, it did in little town outside of San Antonio, did in Santa Fe, did at the Waffle House, did in Aurora, Colorado. So the laws that exist should be enforced. Now, we've talked about that from a different perspective this evening as well, but there has to be accountability at the Department of Justice. I was critical of the Obama Department of Justice that they did not do the follow-through. Jeff Sessions needs to provide the same follow-through. The number of people who were prosecuted during the last administration, the number of people prosecuted who lied on a background application, and the Justice Department knew that they lied, the number of prosecutions like 1%. I mean, that can't happen. I cannot ask my citizens here to give up their Second Amendment rights if we won't do the job that is required.
Nobody wants to take away all guns, sir.
Again, the system needs to work. It's designed to work. It needs to work.
All right, so what else are you going to do besides just blaming it on background checks?
Well, I am working with the governor and people at the state level to help identify people who are having difficulty, and this is primarily on the school side. It is not a problem that is going to be solved with one solution, and you know that.
We do know that, yes. That's why we want you to list some possible solutions here.
Hardening schools, arming teachers, background checks that actually work.
I know, so 2 out of 3 of those were for schools. What about the other parts of our country that are...
background checks are supposed to
work. Well, that's one solution.
Criminals should not have access to guns. I don't know how else to say it.
Okay, so what about the people who were not criminals before and snapped, and you blame it on their mental health? What about those people that had guns and shot up schools with other people in them?
Again, in Florida, the system was blinking red for weeks and weeks and weeks, and no one did a thing. That has to change.
All right, yeah, I think we do want to know what you're going to do. So can you list the solutions, please? Or not solutions, what you're going to attempt to do to bring us to a better world in our country here?
Well, I think I just ran through hardening schools, providing mental health,
besides schools
providing better background checks and more stringent background checks. And I got to tell you, I've visited schools where the teachers are armed, and I think that is a solution.
Okay, all right, so you've talked a lot about schools. You've talked a lot about schools. What about gun violence that happens that's not mass shootings because of wide availability of guns?
Well, what are you proposing?
What do you mean, what am I proposing?
What are you proposing?
I'm thinking we need to do better background checks. We need to stop the gun show loophole. We need to...
The gun show loopholes are not, the gun show loophole has not been the problem. It has not been the problem. But, you started this discussion off saying no one's going to come take your guns, and it sounds to me like that's where you want to go.
The things that I've said, they're just making it a little bit harder for people to get guns. I don't see how that's trying to take away all guns.
It seems to be hard enough right now, but we'll take it under advisement. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Burgess. As with the previous person, I also just came from Texas Boys State, and we talked about many of these contentious issues, but the issue that I'm about to talk about is something that we did not address there, and so I'd like to bring it to you. My name is Kay Savon Silverleaf Couture, and I'm a rising senior here at Denton High School.
Good for you.
Evidence from the recent federal trial shows that Harvard University overwhelmingly discriminates against Asian American applicants such as myself. Harvard receives hundreds of millions of dollars in federal grants each year. I request you to introduce legislation to bar federal funding for Harvard until they stop discriminating.
If you have data, I'll be happy to take a look at it.
Sorry, please.
I said if you have data, I'll be happy to take a look at it.
I'll be happy
anything,
to send it to you.
if I can do anything to hurt Harvard, I'm all in.
Thank you.
Good evening, Congressman Burgess. Thank you for taking the time to listen to your constituents tonight, and I hope that you'll take what I'm going to say and what all the rest of us so far have said to heart, and not just go for sound bites with what's in front of you at the moment. I would like to ask you about something that two of my fellow constituents have already addressed, and that's something that's very pressing and relevant right now, this moment in time. I'd like to ask you about what's happening on the border. And obviously you mentioned immigration is not a new problem.
You say your constituents, are you an elected official?
No, I mean my fellow residents,
okay.
The other folks
Right,
that are your constituents of the community members.
Okay.
People that vote, that put someone in your role in Washington. I am curious, Mia Price spoke when she first got up here about how she, no matter what, will always view you as a doctor. And some other folks have mentioned that as well, about the Hippocratic Oath and how you feel about things based off of your history as a doctor. And as someone that counseled women and provided medical advice, surely you are aware of the impacts of stress on prenatal development and how that can impact a child throughout a pregnancy. Are you aware of those potential negative impacts? So a stressful environment can potentially negatively impact a child, true?
It affects cortisol levels, which subsequently...
Would you believe that to be any different once the child is born?
Well, clearly everyone wants a healthy environment for their child.
Would you describe what's happening currently on the border as a healthy environment for these children?
Well, no, of course you wouldn't. But had you visited before, you would have said it wasn't healthy before. The trick is now going forward, how can things be made better? I will promise you, when I did a town hall in this very room several years ago, the #1 beef I got is how come no one is enforcing current law on the border. Now, the president ran a campaign where he said he was going to end the notice to appear, the catch and release, and he was very successful with that. So that is, you're seeing the effect of that. However, there is a recognition, both from the White House and from the Congress, that, and I referenced how there was no attempt to change this. When the Democrats controlled everything from top to bottom, they were not
That's a problem too.
They were not interested in fixing
This
the problem.
is a problem that needs to change now.
They wanted the issue. So going forward, this week, I think you will see a great deal of activity on this.
So I've read up on the potential legislation that's slated to be talked about this week when you get back to Washington. There's two that are both set to be discussed in the House. And both of those look at this idea of asylum seeking and really are kind of not encouraging us to accept folks that are seeking asylum from their home countries any longer.
That's not true.
It's not?
No.
But didn't you earlier say that you haven't had a chance to review the text of these laws?
No, I'm talking about current law right now. Right now, someone comes to the port of entry seeking asylum, they will be heard.
So why has the U.S. not ratified the UN Convention on the Rights of a Child? Are you familiar with that?
Well, that's in the United Nations. We don't actually vote on that.
Right, but it is it's a treaty that was put out through the United Nations that sets out expectations for civil, political, economic, social, health, and cultural rights of children. It was signed in 1989, 196 countries are party to it, and every member of the UN except the United States has ratified it. I would encourage you to look at that as an option for leading on this issue when we return to Washington.
Before you leave, it is the United States Senate that ratifies treaty, not your humble House of Representatives.
And Dr. Burgess, we are 3 minutes till 8 o'clock.
Okay.
So
let's go.
Hi, Dr. Burgess.
Hi.
Thank you for holding this town hall. So I have a statement and then a question. The statement is you seem to be so dug in. I don't know if anything that we're saying here is making a difference because you seem so dug in. We're all voting, and we encourage you to listen to us and then make your decisions and then start thinking about what your constituents want. Because we obviously want different things from you, and we want you to vote.
That's why we're here tonight,
right.
You and I.
So, okay, good.
That's why we're here
So are you
tonight.
dug in so much that, are you listening to us? Are you going to take what we're saying seriously, and are you going to vote the way we're telling you to vote?
Well, it's a big district, and there are a lot of people.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. Yeah. So then my question is...
And I promise you, when I have done these town halls previously, the sentiment has been, we want our laws on the border enforced.
Yeah. Well, nobody's saying that we want a lawless, country and we want just open borders, but we want it to be done smart and we want it to be done humanely.
And we don't disagree on that.
All right. All right. Let's move on. So my question really is about, Donald Trump seems to admire the North Korean dictator and murderer Kim Jong-un more than he does his closest allies. And I'm really sickened. I'm sickened by his numerous examples of flattering the North Koreans and the Russians. And I'm wondering why we haven't heard from you and your fellow Republicans denouncing these irresponsible, We hope that you'll denounce Trump's almost treasonous remarks about Putin and about Kim Jong-un. Why haven't you said a word? Where have you been? Where have you been?
Now, some people... Look, a year ago, what were we talking about? We were talking about the rockets, the rocket program that they had. We were talking about boost phase intercepts. Boost phase intercept is when the rocket just takes off the launching pad. It is hot, it is slow, it is an easy target. Unfortunately, Unfortunately, if you blow up a rocket that has just taken off from a launching pad, you're violating North Korean airspace. So that would be seen as a very provocative act. And yet, last August, that's where we were. And it was a very serious situation.
Okay.
Now, driving up here today, I heard on the news where the Foreign Secretary of South Korea has asked Mr. Moon there, is it possible that we could sign an armistice to end the Korean War? That's a pretty big deal.
It's a very big deal. It's wonderful. But where have you been for the last several weeks? Nobody has heard anything from you when our president is trying to make nice with Putin and Kim Jong-un. You've been nowhere. Your moral outrage and the Republicans...
My moral outrage would be reserved for the fact that we haven't had a nuclear war.
Okay. Well, I'm letting you know that your a la carte type of moral outrage, the things that you get morally outraged about, it's like a Chinese menu. I'll take one of these, I'll take one of these, but I'm not morally outraged by kids dying on the border. I'm not morally outraged when women don't have rights. I'm not morally outraged when Donald Trump tries to grab women's pussies. Where's your moral outrage?
You may not like his technique, but the world is a safer place to...
Where was your moral outrage when he said it's okay to grab women by their pussies?
Well,
you're a Christian. You're a Christian, and that's really unchristian.
I did issue a statement saying that was not a proper thing to say. But
we're past 8 o'clock. I've got one more, so.
Proceed.
Do me a favor. This is going to be so hard for me. Keep it quiet. Seriously.
Do what she says.
You and I have spoken before in Fort Worth. At that time, I told you my grandson had been in 3 intensive outpatient mental health services, 6 weeks in duration. 1 9-day lockdown psych unit. Well, guess what? He just finished his 4th IOP because he was trying to run out of the school to kill himself. He's going to be 12 in 2 days. Insurance tried to cut him off at 4.5 weeks in the IOP, and the IOP went to battle for him, and he stayed the 6 weeks. He spent the last 3 weeks of school under heavy sedation just to be there. The clock is ticking, dude. It's ticking, and that's all in my head. I've got notes here from someone else whose son went through the same thing, and he maxed out his lifetime benefits, Claudette. At 39, he was homeless, he was addicted to drugs, and he killed himself. This is what happens. Ignorance has its consequences. My daughter-in-law did not drink, she did not smoke, she did not drug, she took care of her body, and this is life. Things happen. You take those pre-existing conditions, you put him in a high-risk pool. My husband and I are already dipping into our retirement to get him care, but we cannot afford $100,000 for an RTC. We cannot. I would forfeit my life for him any day of the week, but we cannot. And still help his parents, all of them who live with us, because it can take 4 adults to get through a day with him. 4. You have got to come up with a solution, because when I talked to you before, you went back to DC and you wrote the biggest dumpster fire of a health care bill I've ever seen, and thank God, and I do thank God it didn't pass. He is a child. He has done nothing wrong to anybody, but he needs help. And by golly, the question I have for you is, if you're not willing, you and your contemporaries are not willing to do anything for him, are you willing to go to his funeral? When he decides the pain is too much to keep going, will you go to his funeral?
You know, we have talked about this before.
We have. And you know what the solution right now is?
And there are a number of things that are available, as you know. Because
Yes, one of them is signing him over to the state, in effect divorcing him to get him that care. That should be really good for his mental state. And no, you didn't really offer a solution other than, oh, well, they've appointed a mental health czar of some sort. Come on, there has got to be a better solution than that. We've got homeless people who are mentally ill. We have children, oh God, sit in an IOP sometime and watch the kids come out, slices on their arms, in pain. Does that bother you?
Of course it does, and there has been more money put into research and treatment for mental health in the past year's time than any time previously in the history of the United States Congress. I realize money is not the only answer, but that is part of the answer, and research is part of the answer.
I mean, I really don't have anything else for you. I just wanted to know if you'd go to his funeral. Truth is, we wouldn't let you, but I wanted to know. Thank you.
Well, I thought I had a list of staff who were here helping us tonight, and I had wanted to acknowledge them. I will do the best from memory. You see Eric With gathering things up. He's the district director here works out of the Lake Dallas office. Jim Coffey, standing over at the side, also works in the Lake Dallas office. Many of you meet him on Monday mornings when you come visit us. I saw Melanie Torres walking toward the back. She does constituent services, and anyone who has a problem that they wish to seek further congressional action, Melanie can help you get the ball rolling on that. Robin Vaughn was up front helping you sign in. Robin is the principal one who's involved with helping our students who wish to attend one of the service academies. Robin does most of that work. Joan Self, who sits in the front office in the Lake Dallas office, has been there for, she doesn't like for me to say how many years, but she's been there for a few years and knows most of you by sight. James Decker is down here from Washington to watch our activities. And Eric, do you have a list of interns for me? And while he's doing that, let me just say, Chief Howell, thank you. You know, these events, I've done well over 100, and gone are the days when it can be me and Officer Friendly at the back of the cafetorium. It takes a significant amount of our police force to ensure that all of us get home safely. And Chief, we thank you and your men. We thank you and your men, some of whom we can identify because they're in uniform, some we can't identify because they're not in uniform, but we thank you because you've really stepped up and helped us make sure that this comes off and comes off well. Democracy is a participatory sport, as I said, it's starting out, and it is important that we hear from each other, and we have indeed heard from each other this evening. Interns this evening, Christian Cole from University of North Texas. I don't know where Christian is, but thank you, Christian. Madison Crow, a junior at Baylor University. Kyle Winter, who is a senior at Flower Mound High School. So thanks to all of those interns who work in the office. They do not get paid, and they give of their time freely, not for me, but for you, the citizens of the 26th District. So I do also want to remind you, if you didn't get a chance to ask a question, there are comment cards at the back, and please do take one of those and fill it out so that we want to hear from you. And if you want to leave your comments, you certainly may. Hannah, Frosch, I'm sorry I left you off. The interim constituent service assistant who is taking Jane Loomis's place while Jane is out for the summer. So thank you, Hannah, for doing that. And let me just review here. Did I leave anyone off? I think I got it. Thank you all very much for coming. I have to take some questions from the press, but I appreciate you being here. We'll see you next time. That's all right.